Isabella Ferrara sat quietly in her childhood bedroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror, hardly recognizing the frightened woman staring back at her. In just a few hours, she would become the wife of Damiano Conti, one of the most feared and ruthless mafia bosses in the entire region, a man she had never even met in person before today. Her father, Vittorio Ferrara, had once run a modestly successful business, but years of poor decisions and desperate gambling had left him deeply indebted to Damiano's organization, debts far beyond what he could ever hope to repay through honest means. When Damiano's men came collecting, Vittorio, desperate and terrified, had offered the only solution he believed might save his family from ruin: his daughter's hand in marriage, sealing an alliance that would settle his debts permanently, while strengthening Damiano's own political standing among rival families. Isabella had no say in the arrangement, informed simply that her marriage would save her family from complete destruction. She had heard countless terrifying stories about Damiano Conti, his ruthlessness in business, his cold, calculating nature, the fear he commanded throughout the city's criminal underworld. She fully expected her marriage to become a life of constant fear and quiet suffering. "Isabella," her mother said softly, entering the room gently. "It's time." Isabella nodded numbly, standing slowly, smoothing down her elegant wedding gown with trembling hands. She had cried countless tears over the past week, since learning of her father's arrangement. Yet now, facing the actual day, she felt strangely numb, resigned entirely to a fate she felt powerless to change. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of unfamiliar faces, tense formalities, and quiet, watchful men positioned carefully around the elegant venue, clearly Damiano's own guarded associates. Isabella barely registered the actual wedding vows, her mind consumed entirely by anxious dread about what awaited her once alone with her new, dangerous husband. Damiano Conti stood tall and composed throughout the ceremony, his expression calm, controlled, and entirely unreadable. He was undeniably handsome, sharp features framed by dark hair, his tailored suit radiating quiet power and authority. Yet Isabella found herself unable to look directly into his intense, calculating eyes, fear keeping her gaze respectfully lowered throughout their brief, formal exchange of vows. After the ceremony concluded, guests quickly dispersed, leaving Isabella and Damiano alone together for the first time as husband and wife. She stood anxiously near the window of their new shared home, her back turned nervously toward him, bracing herself internally for whatever cruelty or coldness she expected to follow. "Isabella," Damiano said quietly, his deep voice surprisingly gentle, breaking the tense silence between them. She turned slowly, forcing herself to meet his gaze directly, though anxiety was evident clearly in her tense posture. "Yes." Damiano studied her carefully, his usually guarded, calculating expression softening unexpectedly. "I understand this marriage wasn't your choice," he said quietly. "I know you're frightened, uncertain about what kind of life awaits you now." Isabella remained silent, uncertain how to respond, bracing herself instinctively for cruelty or manipulation she fully expected to follow his unexpectedly gentle words. "I won't pretend our situation is ideal," Damiano continued carefully. "But I want you to know, Isabella, I don't intend to make your life within these walls difficult or fearful. Whatever reputation precedes me outside this home, I promise you, within these walls, you'll find respect and safety." Isabella studied him carefully, confusion evident beneath her lingering fear. "Why would you say that? Everyone knows your reputation, your ruthlessness." Damiano's expression grew serious, though genuine sincerity remained evident beneath his controlled exterior. "My reputation exists for necessary reasons, Isabella, reasons tied directly to survival and authority within my dangerous world. But that reputation doesn't define who I choose to be within my own private life, especially not toward someone forced unfairly into this arrangement because of circumstances entirely beyond her control." Isabella remained quiet, uncertain whether to trust his unexpected gentleness. Wary of a trick or manipulation she felt certain must be hidden somewhere beneath his calm, reassuring words. "I don't expect you to trust me immediately," Damiano continued gently, sensing her lingering doubt. "But I hope, given time, you'll come to see genuine sincerity behind my words tonight." That evening, rather than the cruelty and coldness Isabella had anticipated, Damiano treated her with unexpected patience and gentle respect, ensuring she felt entirely comfortable and safe within their shared home. He arranged separate sleeping quarters, without any expectation or pressure, quietly reassuring her that intimacy, if it ever came, would happen naturally, entirely on her own terms and timeline. Isabella lay awake long into the night, confusion and cautious relief swirling uncomfortably within her exhausted mind. She had expected fear, cruelty, and constant anxiety as Damiano Conti's wife. Instead, she found herself unexpectedly confronted by genuine gentleness, patience, and quiet respect from a man the entire city feared as ruthless and dangerous. As sleep finally claimed her exhausted mind, Isabella couldn't shake the unsettling realization that her forced marriage, meant to be a fearful, dreaded arrangement, had already begun revealing unexpected complexities and contradictions within the dangerous, mysterious man she now called her husband, complexities she never anticipated needing to understand or navigate carefully as her uncertain new life began. The days following the wedding passed in careful, cautious routine. Isabella remained wary, waiting constantly for Damiano's true, ruthless nature to finally reveal itself, certain that his initial gentleness had simply been a performance, meant to lower her guard before something crueler emerged. Yet day after day, Damiano continued treating her with quiet respect and unexpected patience. He asked about her comfort, ensured she had everything she needed, and never once raised his voice or displayed the cold cruelty she had been warned to expect from him. "You seem tense," Damiano observed one morning, finding Isabella sitting stiffly at the breakfast table, picking absently at her food. "Is something troubling you?" Isabella hesitated, uncertain how honest to be. "I keep waiting," she admitted finally, "for the other side of you to appear. The side everyone warns me about." Damiano's expression grew thoughtful, though not offended by her honest admission. "I imagine that's a reasonable concern, given everything you've likely heard about me." "Is it true?" Isabella asked carefully. "The things people say about your ruthlessness?" Damiano considered his answer carefully before responding honestly. "In my business, yes. I've done things I'm not proud of, things necessary for survival and authority in a world that shows no mercy to weakness. But that doesn't mean I bring that same ruthlessness into every part of my life." Isabella studied him carefully, still uncertain whether to fully trust his words. "How can you separate those two parts of yourself so easily?" "It's not easy," Damiano admitted quietly, genuine vulnerability flickering briefly behind his controlled exterior. "But I've learned that survival in my world requires compartmentalization. The version of me that handles business matters isn't necessarily the version of me capable of genuine kindness or respect in my personal life." Isabella remained thoughtfully silent, slowly beginning to consider that perhaps Damiano's contradictions weren't manipulation, but genuine complexity born from the harsh demands of his dangerous world. Over the following weeks, small moments of genuine connection began developing gradually between them. Damiano would occasionally join her for quiet evening walks through the estate's private gardens, their conversations slowly deepening beyond simple pleasantries into genuine curiosity about each other's lives, dreams, and personal histories. "I always wanted to become a teacher," Isabella admitted one evening, surprising herself with her own openness. "Before everything happened with my father's debts, I was studying literature at university." "What stopped you?" Damiano asked gently, genuine interest evident in his attentive gaze. "My father's financial troubles," Isabella said quietly. "I had to leave my studies to help however I could at home." Damiano studied her carefully, something protective and genuinely sympathetic flickering behind his usually guarded eyes. "That's a significant sacrifice, Isabella. I'm sorry your circumstances forced you toward this instead." Isabella glanced at him curiously, surprised by his genuine empathy. "You sound like you understand sacrifice personally." Damiano's expression grew distant briefly, old memories clearly surfacing painfully. "My own path into this world wasn't entirely my choice either, Isabella. Expectations, family legacy, survival, these things shape us in ways we don't always choose freely." Isabella found herself softening slightly toward him, recognizing genuine parallels between their complicated, difficult circumstances despite their vastly different worlds. Yet she remained cautious, unwilling to fully release her guarded uncertainty about the dangerous world surrounding her new husband. One afternoon, several weeks into their arranged marriage, Isabella witnessed firsthand exactly how dangerous and ruthless Damiano's business world truly could become. She had accompanied him briefly to one of his legitimate business offices, waiting quietly nearby while he attended to routine matters. Suddenly, raised voices echoed sharply from his private office, followed quickly by tense, aggressive shouting. Curious and concerned, Isabella cautiously approached the door, peering carefully through the small gap. Inside, Damiano stood coldly confronting a nervous, sweating businessman, his expression entirely transformed from the gentle, patient man she had grown accustomed to at home. His eyes were hard, calculating, and unmistakably dangerous as he addressed the frightened man directly. "You were warned clearly about the consequences of betraying my trust," Damiano said coldly, his voice carrying unmistakable authority and controlled fury. "Now you'll understand exactly what those consequences mean." The frightened businessman pleaded desperately, though Damiano remained coldly unmoved, gesturing sharply toward his associates, who quickly seized the man, dragging him forcefully from the room under Damiano's watchful, merciless gaze. Isabella stepped back quickly from the door, shock and fear washing over her at witnessing firsthand the cold, ruthless authority Damiano commanded so effortlessly. The gentle, patient man she had grown cautiously comfortable with at home seemed suddenly like a complete stranger, replaced entirely by someone cold, calculating, and genuinely frightening. When Damiano finally emerged from his office minutes later, his expression composed once again, he immediately noticed Isabella's pale, shaken demeanor. "Isabella," he said softly, concern flickering briefly across his controlled features. "Are you all right?" Isabella stared at him, confusion and fear swirling uncomfortably within her. "I just witnessed exactly how ruthless you can truly be, Damiano. Which version of you is real? The gentle husband at home, or the cold, merciless man I just saw in that office?" Damiano studied her carefully, clear understanding evident beneath his controlled exterior. "Both versions are genuinely real, Isabella. I won't pretend otherwise. But please believe me, the gentleness you've experienced at home isn't a performance. It's simply who I choose to be, away from the harsh necessities of my dangerous world." Isabella remained uncertain, torn deeply between fear and genuine confusion, unsure exactly how to reconcile these two dramatically different sides of the complicated, dangerous man she had unexpectedly begun to care for, despite herself. Part 3. Two Sides of the Same Man, 1,000 Words. That evening, Isabella remained quiet and distant, still shaken from witnessing Damiano's cold, ruthless authority firsthand. She sat alone in her room, staring blankly out the window, trying desperately to reconcile the two contradictory versions of her husband that seemed to exist within the same man. A soft knock interrupted her troubled thoughts. "Isabella," Damiano said quietly through the door. "May I come in? I'd like to explain, if you're willing to listen." Isabella hesitated briefly before responding. "All right." Damiano entered slowly, his expression unusually vulnerable, none of the cold authority she had witnessed earlier that day evident in his careful, measured movements. "I understand seeing that side of me today must have been frightening," he began quietly. "It was," Isabella admitted honestly. "I've spent weeks convincing myself the man I'm slowly getting to know is genuine, only to witness someone entirely different, someone cold and merciless." Damiano sat carefully across from her, his gaze steady and sincere. "Isabella, the world I inherited wasn't one I chose freely. My father built this organization through fear and ruthlessness, and when he passed, I inherited not just his business, but the expectations that come with maintaining authority in a world that shows no mercy to weakness." "But why does that mean you have to be cruel?" Isabella asked, genuine confusion evident in her voice. "Because in my world," Damiano explained carefully, "mercy is often perceived as weakness, an invitation for betrayal or challenge. That businessman today had been secretly working with a rival family, feeding them sensitive information that could have destroyed years of careful, delicate negotiations. If I hadn't responded decisively, others watching would have seen an opportunity to test my authority further. Isabella studied him carefully, slowly beginning to understand the impossible position he occupied, torn between necessary ruthlessness in his professional world and the genuine kindness he clearly wished to embody within his personal life. That sounds like an exhausting way to live, constantly split between two completely different identities. It is, Damiano admitted quietly, genuine exhaustion evident beneath his controlled exterior. But it's the only way I've known how to survive, to protect the people who depend on me, including my own family and organization. Isabella considered his words carefully, her fear gradually softening into cautious understanding. I suppose I hadn't considered how difficult that must be, constantly balancing those two dramatically different roles. I don't expect sympathy, Isabella, Damiano said gently, but I do hope you can understand that the man you've come to know here, within our home, is genuinely who I wish to be entirely, if circumstances ever allowed it. Isabella studied him closely, something warm and genuine stirring gently beneath her lingering uncertainty. Thank you for explaining, Damiano. It doesn't erase what I witnessed today, but it helps me understand you a little better. Over the following days, their relationship continued deepening cautiously, Isabella slowly allowing herself to trust the genuine warmth and gentleness Damiano consistently displayed within their private life together, despite the harsh necessities of his dangerous, ruthless public persona. However, word of Damiano's arranged marriage and his unusually gentle treatment of his new wife had begun spreading quietly through rival organizations, sparking curiosity and calculated speculation among those who saw opportunity in perceived vulnerability. Conti's gone soft, one rival leader, Alfonso Grimaldi, remarked coldly during a private meeting with his own associates, marrying a frightened girl from a bankrupt family, treating her gently rather than asserting dominance immediately. Perhaps his authority isn't as absolute as we once believed. What do you propose? One of his men asked carefully. Alfonso's cold smile widened calculatingly. Perhaps it's time to test exactly how far Conti's newfound gentleness extends, and whether his authority remains as strong as his reputation once suggested. Unaware of these dangerous, calculated whispers building steadily against him, Damiano continued cautiously deepening his genuine connection with Isabella, gradually allowing himself vulnerability he rarely permitted within his dangerous, guarded world. One quiet evening, as they walked together through the estate's peaceful gardens, Isabella found herself studying Damiano curiously. Can I ask you something personal, Damiano? Of course. Do you regret this marriage? She asked carefully. Being forced into an arrangement you didn't choose, just as I was? Damiano considered her question thoughtfully before answering honestly. Initially, perhaps I viewed our marriage simply as practical necessity, securing important business alliances. But now, Isabella, spending these weeks getting to know you genuinely, I find myself grateful for circumstances that led us together, despite how difficult and frightening they initially seemed. Isabella felt warmth spreading gently through her chest at his sincere admission, her earlier fear and uncertainty steadily transforming into genuine, growing affection. I feel similarly, Damiano. I never expected genuine happiness from this arrangement, yet somehow, unexpectedly, I've found exactly that. Their quiet, tender moment was suddenly interrupted by Enzo, Damiano's trusted assistant, rushing urgently toward them. Sir, forgive the intrusion, but we've received troubling news. It appears Isabella's family estate has received threats, directly connected to rival organizations, testing your authority. Damiano's expression hardened instantly, protective anger replacing his earlier vulnerability. Threats against Isabella's family? Specifically because of our marriage? It appears so, Enzo confirmed gravely. Rivals seem to believe your gentleness toward Isabella signals vulnerability, an opportunity to challenge your authority directly. Isabella's breath caught sharply, fear flooding through her at the sudden, dangerous turn of events. My family, she whispered anxiously. Are they in immediate danger? Damiano's jaw tightened with fierce, protective resolve, his earlier tenderness replaced instantly by cold, calculated determination. "Not for long," he said firmly. "I won't allow anyone to mistake my genuine care for you as weakness, nor will I allow harm to come to your family because of rivals testing boundaries they shouldn't dare challenge." As Damiano moved quickly to address the escalating threat, Isabella watched him go, fear and admiration intertwining deeply within her, uncertain exactly how dangerous and difficult the coming days would soon become, as both her family's safety and her own growing feelings for Damiano faced their most serious challenge yet. Within hours, Damiano had gathered his most trusted men, his expression cold and calculating as he addressed the situation directly. "Tell me exactly what we're dealing with," he demanded, pacing his private study with barely controlled intensity. Alfonso Grimaldi's men were spotted near the Ferrara estate, Enzo reported grimly. They didn't make direct contact, but their presence alone was clearly meant as a message, testing how you might respond. Damiano's fists clenched tightly. "Increase security around Isabella's family immediately. I won't allow Grimaldi to harm innocent people simply to test my resolve." "Sir," Enzo said carefully, "there's something else you should consider. Word has spread that your gentleness toward Isabella might indicate weakened authority. If you respond too cautiously now, it could invite even greater challenges from other rivals watching closely." Damiano's jaw tightened, understanding fully the delicate, dangerous balance he now needed to maintain. "Then we'll make certain everyone understands clearly that my personal gentleness has absolutely no bearing on my professional resolve." Meanwhile, Isabella paced anxiously within her private quarters, fear for her family's safety weighing heavily upon her. When Damiano finally returned to update her, she rushed toward him immediately. "Please, tell me my family is safe." "They're secure for now," Damiano assured her firmly. "I've increased protection around your family's estate immediately. But Isabella, I need you to understand something important." "What is it?" Isabella asked anxiously. "Rivals see our marriage, my gentleness toward you, as potential weakness," Damiano explained carefully. "To protect both you and your family permanently, I may need to respond decisively, demonstrating clearly that my authority remains absolute, regardless of my personal feelings toward you." Isabella studied him carefully, understanding gradually the complicated, difficult position he now faced. "I understand, Damiano. Do whatever's necessary to protect my family and yourself." Damiano felt a surge of gratitude and admiration toward her calm, supportive understanding, despite the danger surrounding them both. "Thank you for understanding, Isabella. That means more to me than you realize." Over the following days, Damiano organized a careful, decisive response toward Grimaldi's organization, aiming to firmly re-establish his authority while ensuring Isabella's family remained completely protected. Isabella, rather than remaining passively fearful, actively supported Damiano's efforts, offering insight and steady encouragement during their private strategy discussions. "You've grown remarkably composed given everything happening," Damiano observed one evening, genuine admiration evident in his tone. "I've realized," Isabella replied thoughtfully, "that hiding away fearfully accomplishes nothing. If I'm going to be your wife, truly your partner, I want to support you actively, not simply remain passively protected." Damiano studied her closely, deep respect and genuine affection evident beneath his controlled exterior. "You continue to surprise me, Isabella, in the best possible ways." Their growing partnership deepened steadily, mutual respect and genuine affection blossoming clearly between them despite the escalating danger surrounding their unconventional marriage. Yet beneath this positive development, Grimaldi's dangerous ambitions continued escalating rapidly. One evening, as Damiano prepared to address business matters at one of his legitimate offices downtown, tragedy nearly struck directly. As he stepped from his car, a sudden gunshot rang out sharply, narrowly missing him as his security detail quickly reacted, pulling him swiftly to safety behind cover. Chaos erupted instantly as Damiano's men scrambled to identify and neutralize the hidden assailant, gunfire echoing through the previously quiet street. Within minutes, the shooter was captured, revealing clearly Grimaldi's direct involvement in the assassination attempt. Damiano, shaken but uninjured, quickly returned to his estate, adrenaline and fury coursing through him as he processed the seriousness of the attack. Isabella, upon hearing news of the attempted assassination, rushed anxiously to greet him, relief and fear intertwining deeply within her. "Damiano!" she cried, embracing him tightly the moment he entered. "I heard what happened. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Damiano reassured her gently, though his expression remained tense with barely controlled anger. "Grimaldi has crossed a serious line tonight, attempting to eliminate me directly." Isabella pulled back slightly, studying him carefully, genuine fear evident in her eyes. "This is exactly what you warned about, isn't it? Rivals testing your authority, believing your gentleness toward me signals weakness." "Yes," Damiano admitted grimly, "but tonight's attack proves clearly that Grimaldi has become far more dangerous and desperate than I initially anticipated." "What happens now?" Isabella asked, genuine concern evident despite her growing resolve. Damiano's expression hardened with fierce determination. "Now, I ensure Grimaldi understands definitively that attempting to eliminate me, threatening my wife's family, testing my authority through violence, will result in consequences he won't survive." Isabella nodded firmly, her earlier fear steadily transforming into genuine determination and support. "Then let me help however I can, Damiano. I refuse to remain passively frightened while you face this danger alone." Damiano studied her closely, admiration and genuine love evident clearly beneath his controlled, protective exterior. "Isabella, your courage and support mean everything to me. Together, we'll ensure this threat is eliminated permanently, securing both our safety and your family's future." As they stood together, resolved and determined despite the serious danger surrounding them, Damiano and Isabella both recognized clearly that their arranged marriage, once viewed simply as fearful necessity, had transformed steadily into genuine partnership, built increasingly upon mutual respect, growing love, and unwavering support, even as they now faced together the most dangerous and decisive challenge, yet in their unexpected, evolving relationship, the morning after the assassination attempt. Damiano gathered his most trusted associates for an urgent strategy meeting. Isabella, refusing to remain excluded any longer, insisted on being present, her calm determination now a steady presence within Damiano's inner circle. Grimaldi's attack was bold, but reckless, Enzo reported, spreading intelligence documents across the table. "It suggests he's grown desperate, perhaps sensing his own position weakening within his organization." "Desperate men are often the most dangerous," Damiano replied grimly. "We need to understand exactly what's driving his sudden aggression." As the meeting continued, Marco, one of Damiano's longtime associates, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding direct eye contact. Isabella, observing quietly from her position beside Damiano, noticed his unusual nervousness. "Marco," she said carefully, once the meeting concluded and others had dispersed, "is everything all right? You seemed unusually tense during our discussion." Marco hesitated, clearly torn internally. "It's nothing, Mrs. Conti. Just concerned about recent events." Isabella studied him carefully, instinct telling her something deeper troubled him. She mentioned her observation quietly to Damiano later that evening. "Marco's behavior has been unusual lately," Damiano admitted thoughtfully. "I'll have Enzo look into it discreetly." Within days, Enzo's careful investigation revealed a troubling truth. Marco had been secretly providing information to Grimaldi's organization, motivated by mounting personal debts and promises of substantial payment in exchange for insider knowledge about Damiano's security and movements. "Marco betrayed us," Damiano said coldly, fury evident beneath his controlled exterior upon receiving Enzo's confirmed report. "He provided the information that nearly got me killed." "What will you do?" Isabella asked, genuine concern evident in her voice. "Marco will face serious consequences for his betrayal," Damiano replied firmly. "But more importantly, this confirms Grimaldi has been planning his assault against me carefully, methodically, for quite some time." Isabella considered the situation seriously. "If Marco has been feeding information to Grimaldi, perhaps we could use this discovery strategically, feeding false information back through him instead." Damiano studied her carefully, genuine admiration evident in his gaze. That's a clever strategy, Isabella. Using Marco's betrayal against Grimaldi directly. Together, they carefully devised a plan, allowing Marco to unknowingly relay false information to Grimaldi regarding Damiano's supposed vulnerability during an upcoming business event, hoping to lure Grimaldi into a decisive, controlled confrontation on their own terms rather than remaining vulnerable to further surprise attacks. As the plan unfolded carefully over subsequent days, tension grew steadily, both Damiano and Isabella acutely aware of the serious danger still surrounding them. Yet their partnership deepened further through this shared danger, mutual trust and respect solidifying steadily between them. "I'm frightened," Isabella admitted quietly one evening, as they prepared for the decisive confrontation ahead. "Not just for myself, but for you, Damiano. I don't want to lose you now. Not after everything we've built together." Damiano gently took her hands, his expression softening with genuine tenderness, despite the seriousness of their situation. "Isabella, these past weeks with you have shown me exactly what genuine partnership and love truly mean. Whatever happens, know that I don't regret a single moment we've shared." Isabella felt tears building emotionally in her eyes, genuine love and fear intertwining deeply within her. "I love you, Damiano. I didn't expect to say those words so soon, given how our marriage began, but I mean them genuinely." Damiano's expression softened further, genuine emotion evident clearly beneath his controlled exterior. "I love you too, Isabella, more than I ever anticipated possible when we first married." Their tender moment was interrupted by Enzo's urgent arrival. "Sir, everything's set. Marco has relayed the false information exactly as planned. Grimaldi's men are moving into position now, believing you'll be vulnerable and unprotected." Damiano nodded firmly, his earlier vulnerability replaced instantly by cold, calculated resolve. "Then let's ensure Grimaldi finally understands definitively that testing my authority, threatening my wife and family, will result in consequences he cannot survive." As Damiano prepared to depart for the decisive confrontation, Isabella insisted firmly on accompanying him, refusing to remain passively behind while he faced such critical danger. "I want to be there, Damiano. Not directly in danger, but close enough to support you, exactly as we've planned together." Damiano hesitated only briefly before nodding, recognizing clearly Isabella's genuine courage and determination. "All right, but please stay carefully positioned exactly where Enzo directs, understood?" Isabella nodded firmly, determination steadying her resolve despite the serious danger ahead. Together, they departed toward the carefully orchestrated confrontation, unaware exactly how intense and dangerous the coming events would soon unfold, a confrontation that would decisively determine not only Damiano's continued authority and safety, but the strength and permanence of the genuine love they had unexpectedly discovered together throughout their extraordinary, dangerous journey. The evening arrived cold and tense as Damiano's men positioned themselves carefully around the designated business venue, Marco's false information having successfully lured Grimaldi's forces into exactly the trap Damiano and Isabella had carefully orchestrated together. Isabella waited nearby in a secure vehicle, exactly as instructed, her heart pounding anxiously as she watched the tense scene unfold from a careful distance. Damiano stood calmly near the venue's entrance, appearing deliberately vulnerable and unprotected, precisely as Grimaldi had been led to believe. Right on schedule, Grimaldi's men emerged from the shadows, confident in their perceived advantage, moving swiftly toward Damiano's seemingly unprotected position. But the moment they committed fully to their assault, Damiano's hidden security swiftly surrounded them, catching Grimaldi's forces completely by surprise. Gunfire erupted briefly as the coordinated ambush unfolded exactly as planned, Damiano's men swiftly overwhelming Grimaldi's outmatched, unprepared assailants. Within minutes, the confrontation ended decisively, several of Grimaldi's men captured, others fleeing in disarray, their carefully planned assault completely unraveling. Grimaldi himself, watching the disaster unfold from a nearby vantage point, realized quickly his entire plan had been anticipated and turned against him. Panicked and desperate, he attempted to flee, only to find Damiano's men already blocking his escape route. "It's over, Grimaldi," Damiano said coldly, approaching him directly, his expression hard and unwavering. Your attempt to challenge my authority, to threaten my wife and her family, ends tonight. Grimaldi, cornered and desperate, raised his weapon shakily. You think this changes anything, Connie? Even if you kill me, others will rise to challenge you eventually. Perhaps, Damiano replied evenly. But tonight, it won't be you. With swift, decisive action, Damiano's men quickly disarmed Grimaldi, securing him completely before he could act further. The confrontation ended firmly and permanently, Grimaldi's organization collapsing rapidly in the aftermath, his remaining associates scattering, unwilling to continue a conflict clearly already lost. Isabella, watching anxiously from her secure position, felt overwhelming relief flood through her as she witnessed the confrontation's decisive, successful resolution. Moments later, Damiano approached her vehicle, his expression relieved yet still carrying the intense focus of the recent conflict. It's over, he said simply, opening her door gently. Grimaldi's threat has been completely eliminated. Isabella rushed from the vehicle, embracing him tightly, relief and genuine love intertwining deeply within her. Thank you, she whispered softly, for ending this danger, for protecting both of us. Damiano held her closely, his earlier controlled intensity softening entirely into genuine warmth and affection. We did this together, Isabella. Your courage, your strategic thinking, played an essential role in tonight's success. Isabella smiled softly through relieved tears. I couldn't have done any of this without you standing beside me, Damiano. In the weeks that followed, with Grimaldi's threat permanently eliminated and Marco's betrayal appropriately addressed, life gradually returned to peaceful stability. Damiano's authority, rather than weakening because of his genuine gentleness toward Isabella, became instead a demonstration of his strength, proof that genuine kindness and decisive strength could coexist powerfully within the same person. Isabella's family, finally freed from the constant threat and uncertainty that had plagued them since her father's original deaths, began rebuilding their lives with renewed security and hope. Deeply grateful for Damiano's genuine protection and support, Isabella herself continued growing steadily within her role as Damiano's wife, no longer merely a frightened woman forced into an unwanted arrangement, but a confident, capable partner actively involved in supporting her husband's complicated, dangerous world, while also nurturing genuine, deep love between them. One quiet evening, sitting together comfortably on the terrace of their shared estate, watching the sunset paint the sky in warm, gentle colors, Isabella rested her head contentedly against Damiano's shoulder. Do you ever think about how frightened I was that first night? She asked softly, genuine warmth evident in her voice. Certain you would be cruel and merciless? Damiano chuckled warmly, pulling her closer. Often. I remember clearly how terrified you seemed, expecting cruelty rather than the gentleness I hoped to offer instead. I'm grateful you proved those fears wrong, Isabella said softly, genuine happiness evident in her contented smile. Grateful our marriage, despite how it began, blossomed into something genuinely beautiful and real. Damiano gently kissed the top of her head, holding her closely as peaceful contentment settled comfortably around them both. I share that gratitude completely, Isabella. What began as necessary arrangement has become the most genuine, meaningful relationship of my entire life. Isabella smiled contentedly, genuine love and security finally replacing the fear and uncertainty that had once defined her life. I love you, Damiano. Completely, genuinely, and without any remaining fear. I love you too, Isabella, Damiano replied softly, sincerity evident clearly in his gentle, warm gaze. Now, and for the rest of our lives together. From that day forward, Damiano Conti was no longer known simply as the ruthless, feared mafia boss whose reputation inspired fear throughout the criminal underworld, but privately, quietly, as a man who had finally found genuine happiness, love, and lasting partnership, all because a frightened young woman, forced unwillingly into marriage, had discovered unexpected gentleness, strength, and genuine love hidden carefully beneath his fearsome, dangerous exterior.